Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order this morning. This is the Niagara Regional Police Services Board meeting for Thursday, the 22nd of March. Any declaration of conflicts from any board members this morning? Not seeing none. I will proceed to the minutes of the public meeting from the 23rd of February, 22nd of February. If I could have a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Member Caslin, seconded by Member Bonham. All in favor of the minutes? Thank you. That motion is carried. The public meeting held for Information Technology Committee. It was a meeting on March the 8th. Minutes are in your package. It's number 37 on the agenda. A mover and seconder for that. Moved by Member Stewart, seconded by Member Bonham. All in favor of those? Thank you, and that matter is carried. This morning you have reports from myself. Chair Gale is on vacation this week. I am the acting chair for this meeting and this week. Before I begin the public meeting, I would like to remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed and will be posted on the board's YouTube channel following the meeting. And this gives me a great pleasure this morning to introduce Tara McKendrick, who is our newly appointed board member. Got sworn in last Thursday. So I would like to officially welcome her to the board. I think everybody on the board has had a chance to meet her this morning. Ms. Kendrick has been appointed to the board by the provincial government for a 2-year term. She was sworn in on March 15th and is now able to participate in all board matters and business. Ms. McKendrick fills a position previously held by Bob Marshall, who served on the board for over 7 years and who retired last fall. Ms. McKendrick brings over 20 years of experience to from the social services fields through participation in various roles throughout Niagara. She has a history of volunteer work with Big Sisters, Niagara Victim Services, Distress Center Niagara, and other community agencies. Her employment history has included involvement and collaboration with other emergency response services, child protection services, hospital emergency departments, and mental health and addiction services. The focus of her roles have been suicide prevention, crisis intervention and resolution, as well as advocacy, awareness, and facilitation of curriculum regarding suicide prevention and mental health and addiction. Ms. McKendrick currently serves as the Executive Director of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Niagara Branch, and on behalf of my colleagues at the board, we welcome your participation and look forward to your contributions to the board. Welcome aboard. The next item on this is the State of the Region Address, hosted by board member and chair Alan Caslin. On March 28th, Regional Chair Caslin will be delivering his State of the Region Address at the Niagara business community to highlight the accomplishments and future goals of the Niagara region. The event is being held from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Scotiabank Convention Center in Niagara Falls. All board members and executive directors will be attending the event, along with Deputy Chiefs Forty and Deputy Chief Flynn and Superintendent Cindy White, which I thought I saw come in. Yes, she is. Next on the items is the Niagara Regional Police Services Recruit Swearing-In Ceremony. This is being held on April the 27th at 7 p.m. The service will be hosting a swearing-in ceremony for 8 new recruits to the Niagara Regional Police Service. The ceremony is being held here at Niagara Regional Police Headquarters in Niagara Falls, and members of the board that are interested in attending are asked to confirm with board staff. Upcoming PSB meetings. The next board committee meeting is scheduled to be held on Thursday, March the 12th at 8:30 a.m. and will be held here again in the community room at police headquarters. The next board meeting of this board will take place on Thursday, April 26th at 8:30. However, it will be held in Fort Erie. And if you all recall, it was a commitment of the board to move our meetings to different venues. So the one coming up for April 26th is going to be held at Fort Erie Council Chambers. And the NRPS will open the meeting with a public presentation about local community safety issues within the Fort Erie area. In 2016, the board decided to change its locations of its meetings in an effort to promote awareness in the role of the board and stay in touch with community concerns over policing issues. In the past, we have been in Port Colborne, Welland, West Lincoln, and now moving into Fort Erie, and I think we're back in Niagara-on-the-Lake at some point in time. Again, building on our success of those past meetings, the board wanted to continue a proactive and engaging, educating, and hearing from the public and holding at least 2 off-site meetings every year. In 2017, as I indicated before, we were in West Lincoln and the city of Welland. Off-site meetings will again will resume, as I said, on April 26th in Fort Erie, but again on September 27th, our meetings will be held in Niagara-on-the-Lake, again off-site. By holding meetings at other locations, other than police headquarters, it makes board members more accessible and connected to different communities in the Niagara region, and also allows public input and engagement with the board and with our police service senior executive. That concludes my remarks. I turn this now over to the Chief of Police.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I too would like to welcome the newest board member, welcome Tara McKendrick. Your experience, particularly with mental health and addictions, will, I'm sure, be a great asset to the board. And on behalf of the service, we certainly look forward to a very positive and collaborative relationship working with you in the future. So, welcome. Yeah. So, I'd first of all like to start off by extending an invitation to the board to the annual Niagara Regional Police Service Tug-of-War event that takes place between our U.S. law enforcement partners on Saturday, May the 12th at 2 p.m. I'm proud to announce that for the first time in the event's history, the NRPS will be putting forth a women's team to compete against a U.S. women's law enforcement team. Invitation has been extended to all service members and board members and their families to attend this event to cheer our team on to on to victory. Then we'll start with a family barbecue at 12 noon in the parking lot of 4960 Clifton Hill, which is right in behind Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. And then we'll march to the Rainbow Bridge at 1:45 p.m. and the tug-of-war will start at 2 p.m. And our team captains for the event are Sergeant Tony Mummery and his wife, Detective Constable Sarah Mummery. If for anybody attending, I just ask if you could consider bringing a non-perishable food item for the event, which will be collected at the barbecue. And the food donated will go to Project Share Food Bank in Niagara Falls. For those that are going onto the bridge, remember you'll need your passports as well. And I'll move on now to, with regards to marijuana grow operations. In the month of February, we had $10,000 worth of marijuana seized, which brings our street value for 2018 up to $2.7 million seized so far this year. For the month of February to March 20th, we had 0 homicides and have not had any homicides yet this year. Comparatively, we had 3 homicides in 2017, 1 homicide in 2016, and 6 homicides in 2015. So we hope that trend continues. We've had 13 robberies in the month of February. 6 of those robberies were cleared and 7 of those remain ongoing. With regards to traffic fatalities and serious motor vehicle collisions for the month of February and including January, we've not had any fatal collisions at this point in time, and we've had 2 life-threatening collisions during that time frame. So in the news, in January 2018, members of the Niagara Falls Street Crime Unit began investigating the sale of heroin and methamphetamine in the city of Niagara Falls. On February 15th, officers arrested a male in relation to drug trafficking and subsequently executed a controlled drugs and substance act search warrant at 33-year-old Niagara Falls male's apartment. In total, 43.7 grams of heroin, 58.2 grams of crystal methamphetamine, and 19 grams of cocaine, as well as 20 Percocets were seized. Total street value of $24,000. We also seized a prohibited knife along with some stolen property and proceeds of crime. For the past couple of months, members of our street crime unit in St. Catharines have been investigating an address on York Street in St. Catharines for heroin trafficking. Conducted surveillance on this address and made several observations of what were consistent with the sale of drugs. On February 20th, we applied and were granted a search warrant for the residence. And at approximately 4:50 p.m., 2 males and a female were arrested inside the residence. Upon searching the residence, we found a significant quantity of heroin, which was tinted purple and believed to contain fentanyl. We also seized crystal methamphetamine and evidence consistent that demonstrated these drugs were being trafficked. So in total, approximately $19,000 worth of drugs were seized, and about $2,800 worth of proceeds of crime were seized as well. Incident in Fort Erie on Thursday, February 22nd at approximately 7:20 a.m. Officers from 5 District in Fort Erie responded to a residence in Fort Erie for a report of a male in crisis. Upon arrival, officers received information that the male may have a firearm. Residence was contained by officers and members of the Emergency Task Unit, K-9 unit. In fact, it was the day of police board meeting, I believe. Crisis negotiators were called in, as well as members of our Marine unit that were working that day to assist with containment. Out of concern for the safety of the use of the Hamilton rescue vehicle. Unfortunately, it wasn't available, and we were able to reach out to our partner at Halton Regional Police, and were able to use their rescue vehicle, which attended the scene. And at approximately 12:30 p.m., male exited the residence and surrendered to police without further incident. And it was found that he was in possession of a pellet gun, not a real firearm. There are 3 male victims as a result of this incident. One of the victims is alleged to have received a minor injury as a result of being struck by the victim being operated by the accused. In 2018, members of the Welland Street Crime Unit commenced an investigation with the assistance of the RCMP into allegations that heroin and cocaine were being sold from a Welland residence. On February 23rd, the investigation concluded with the execution of a Controlled Drugs and Substance Act search warrant. 4 occupants were found to be in possession of approximately $4,000 worth of heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, and marijuana. An update with regards to the Project L8 nightclub in Niagara Falls. We have 5 people are facing a total of 49 charges as a result of a lengthy investigation following a shooting at a Thorold nightclub. The L8 nightclub in Thorold in September of 2017. You recall in the early morning hours of February 28th, members of Niagara Regional Police Service, as well as members from Peel, Toronto, Ottawa, and the Provincial Weapons Enforcement Unit executed 3 search warrants in the GTA following a 6-month investigation. This project stemmed from a shooting that occurred in the early morning of September 3rd, 2017, that left 5 people with serious gunshot injuries. As a result, 2 males from Brampton, 2 males from Mississauga, and a male from Scarborough are all facing a list of serious charges. A Niagara Falls woman is facing charges after a series of thefts from vehicles in the Lundy's Lane area of Niagara Falls. 2 district officers from our street crime unit began investigating in early February 2018 after a series of thefts were reported, and a 30-year-old female has been arrested and charged with a rash of thefts from vehicles that were taking place in that area. An investigation into suspicious activity in the tourism district of the City of Niagara Falls has also led to 2 arrests. In early February of 2018, detectives from the Niagara Regional Police Service Street Crime Unit began investigating a break-and-enter at a brewery on Clifton Hill. as well as suspicious activity that was taking place at a hotel on Falls Avenue. As a result of that investigation, 2 men were identified, arrested, and have been charged accordingly. A male was arrested in Beamsville following a foot pursuit. So on Wednesday, March the 7th, at approximately 7:15 a.m., Grimsby uniform officers responded to the area of Alexandra Avenue and Dennis Avenue in the town of Lincoln. Officers were there for a report of a theft of vehicle which had just occurred. Responding officers were also advised that a break-and-enter and an assault had also taken place in the same area within minutes of each other. The stolen vehicle was recovered a short distance away after the driver lost control and eventually crashed into a house, causing external damage. The suspect fled on foot as patrol officers, detectives, and canine responded to the area and quickly set up a perimeter. A plainclothes detective located the suspect in the area of Northgate Crescent and Hillary Bald Park, and he was arrested without incident. 2 victims of the assault suffered minor injuries. One of the victims was transported by ambulance to a local hospital where they were treated and released. Damage to the house is estimated at approximately $50,000, and the vehicle was damaged to the tune of $3,000. An 18-year-old male was charged with numerous offenses. Beginning in February of 2018, members of our Niagara Falls Street Crime Unit have been investigating a rash of daytime break-and-enters to residents in the area surrounding Victoria Avenue in Niagara Falls. On March 4th, a homeowner confronted the suspects as they were breaking into a residence and chased them off. Our uniform officers and canine unit attended, commenced a search. As a result, potential suspects were identified. Detectives from the Niagara Falls Street Crime Unit, with the assistance of our forensic video unit, gathered further evidence which led to a criminal code search warrant being executed at a residence on March the 7th, and officers located the couple who were arrested and seized evidence that was related to the break-and-enters, and they've been charged accordingly. On Wednesday, March the 7th, Niagara Regional Police officers from 2 District and Niagara Falls were called to an address of a male youth in Niagara Falls for a threats complaint. Detectives from 2 District Criminal Investigation Branch subsequently took over the investigation. An 18-year-old male was arrested and charged with uttering threats. Despite what was widely circulated on social media, detectives have determined that there was no direct threat to St. Michael Catholic High School or any involvement of a firearm. The Niagara Regional Police Service had a school resource officer on site the morning following the arrest to help mitigate any concerns that parents or students or staff at the school might have in relation to that incident. On Saturday, March the 10th, at approximately 6:50 a.m., members of the Niagara Regional Police were on patrol on Queenston Street in the city of St. Catharines. At this time, they were alerted to a break-and-enter that had just occurred at a nearby business. Suspects were reported to have possibly fled into the premise of the former St. Catharines General Hospital. We attended and set up a perimeter with the assistance of our canine unit. We searched the old hospital, and 5 male parties were located inside the premise. Investigators showed that the parties had broken into the premise of the former hospital, were attempting to steal items from inside the property, copper mainly. An investigation by police found that they were the ones that were responsible for this break-in, and they've been charged accordingly. A St. Catharines woman is facing fraud charges after allegedly defrauding her employer of over $550,000. Detectives from our Central Fraud Unit were advised in November of 2017 regarding concerns of a local dentist that his general manager was defrauding his Ridgeway dentistry practice. And as a result of that investigation, a warrant was executed at the suspect's address. She was apprehended at the Rainbow Bridge crossing into Canada on March the 14th. And the offenses took place between December 2014 and November 2017, and she's been charged accordingly. And that's all I have for the public portion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I must pass on comments regarding the L8 investigation, which was a very lengthy one, and obviously brought to conclusion, and it shows very good work on the part of the service and our other police partners. So if you would pass on our thanks to the hard work and dedication of our officers in bringing closure to the L8 matter in Niagara Falls.
I certainly will, and I'll echo those comments. It was a fantastic investigation and really dedicated officers that were assigned to that project. Thank you.
Thank you. So turning to the other items, we're now up to number 38. Sorry.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair. And I want to make a comment and then I have a question for the Chief as well. My comment was with respect maybe to piggyback on your remarks as well, and that is recognizing and welcoming Member McKendrick. This board passed a resolution, you may not be aware, Member McKendrick, requesting the province to appoint somebody more representative of the community that we serve, considering the current makeup of the board. And so I'm happy the province made the choice that they've made, and your experience as well as an added benefit in terms of the lens you bring to this table will be a great benefit and greatly appreciated. So sincerely welcome, Member McKendrick. Chief McCullough, so I sent an email to you and I believe the deputies and Chair Gale at the time regarding the Broken Spoke program that started in Port Colborne. And that program is supported by the region. It's basically an accredited program for at Port Colborne High School where students fix up bikes, and those bikes then are donated to people in need across the region as well as other countries, actually. And so the regional landfills are kind of a depot where their raw materials are kind of collected and shipped there. And it's very successful. It's the only program in Canada that's been recognized and accredited. The question Aubrey Foley, the founder of the program, had was, given its success, I think it's branched out into Grimsby as well, if there was an opportunity available to have a contact with correctional services, and I know that's not us, but whether we had an appropriate pathway for him to follow and reach out to correctional services, just a high-level exploratory conversation of whether a similar type of program can be considered within that realm. So I'm not sure if it's something that you are able to highlight or suggest at the moment, or just hang on to that and get back to us at another time.
So I'll get back to you with a contact name that would be appropriate for that individual to reach out to, if that works for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much.
Member Stewart?
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I just wondered if at this stage you're able to have any report of whether we've had any success in improving things with the infamous St. Patrick's Day ventures in St. Catharines and Brock University area.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so with regards to the St. Patrick's Day festivities that largely occurred on Jacobson Avenue in St. Catharines, I certainly recognize that not all of the residents on Jacobson Avenue were happy with the events that took place. But by and large, I'm quite pleased with how the event unfolded. I think what we all kind of have to get our heads wrapped around is that this is the new normal. This is the new phenomena that's not only happening in St. Catharines and within Niagara. It's happening in every university town across the province, and we only need to look to our neighbors in Waterloo and the significant thousands of people that attended there, that were arriving there by the busload. If you've seen photos on social media or on the news, it was pretty significant volume of people that attended there. What I would say is that with respect to this year's approach, it was a very collaborative approach. We worked very closely with the president of Brock University, Mr. Gerben Fearon, as well as the vice provost and the vice president in advance of those meetings. Myself and Deputy Flynn and Deputy Forty, we met and developed a plan, and then had our operational people involved in putting that plan together, which really focused on collaboration between all of the different stakeholders that were involved. City of St. Catharines, Brock University, security, BUSU, Brock University Student Union, St. Catharines Fire, Penn Center, with a real goal of getting buy-in from the students. We knew the event was going to take place, but what we really focused on was that they'd involve themselves in responsible and respectful behavior to the neighbors. That planning took place initially in October, and we've been working on that plan right through up until the day of the event. So we redeployed a lot of resources that would normally be in our detective office were redeployed to the front line. We set up ride units in the area, worked with the AGCO as well in terms of the bars in downtown St. Catharines in particular. And, by and large, there were a few incidents that were reported. But I can say that by 6:30, the students started to attend, I believe, around 11 a.m. in that area. And by 6:30, the event had closed down, and students from BUSU had arrived with garbage bags and were cleaning up the mess. I drove down the following morning, and there was no evidence whatsoever that there had been any kind of a party there the night before. About 2,000 students is what we estimate in total that were there. Just with regards to some high-level enforcement, there were 6 calls for service that we responded to during the event on Jacobson. There were a total of 25 tickets that were issued for Liquor License Act infractions. There was 1 nuisance bylaw that was issued. In total, there were 3 arrests that were made, 2 for public intoxication and 1 for breach of the peace. And there was a report of an elderly male that had his windshield broken by a beer bottle that was driving through the Penn Center. I can tell you that this incident wasn't brought to our attention, nor did anybody witness such an event taking place. But if that individual has not come forward at this point in time to us to report the incident, if that were to occur, obviously we would investigate that wholeheartedly, and if we can identify the individuals, we'll do so. So, and by and large, I'm very proud of the officers that had to work under difficult situation, who really balanced the rights of the students, but also were firm but fair with enforcement when it was appropriate to do so.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, just I thought it was good to talk about that, because the things that I've heard from the community was that for the most part, people believe everything was well handled and public order was maintained, which is, of course, one of the goals of the police service. It'll never be perfect, and that's just the way it is whenever you're going to put 2,000 people or more together for an impromptu event that involves alcohol. But I guess from what I've heard from folks and even from city councilors that represent that area and everything, they generally seem to be quite pleased with the improvements made from the previous year and in managing an event. And one person told me that they have a son that goes to Queen's University, and they start 8 o'clock in the morning there for their celebrations of St. Patrick's Day. So as you well stated, it is something that's going on. So congratulations to the service for finding that right balance so that public order can be maintained without causing any worse harm than is already there. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and with regards to the input from councillors and whatnot as well, I appreciate that. Just with respect to our focus on continuous improvement, there will be a debrief of the event that's taking place on April the 8th with all of the stakeholders. We realize it wasn't perfect, and we'll work and strive to find that perfection going forward. But again, as you highlighted, it's an impromptu event, and we're literally scouring social media to try and find out when the event is going to occur, and sometimes just hours before the event is going to occur. So, and hats off to the senior administration at Brock University, Donna Moody at Brock Security, to Busu. It was a real collaborative approach, and we thank all of them for their participation as well.
Okay, we have no presentations? No, thank you. So our next item on the agenda is item number 38. It's a report to receive. It's, I'm going to do, oh, that's true, we could do that. I guess I forgot about the consent items. We have a block of consent items which runs from number 38 to 47. So if anybody has questions on specific item, a mover for that, Member Caslin, seconded by Member Stewart. Any discussion on the items within the block? Member Bonham. Just let me know what number it is.
Excuse me. Item 41 is titled Uniform and Civilian Overtime Quarterly Activity Report. And looking at the chart that's provided, I'm looking at under investigation requirements, incident follow-up, which seems to be hanging in at quite a high number. I appreciate that that's a byproduct of either lots of activity or some fairly complicated issues. I'm just wondering if is that something that can be assisted by the employment of others, or is that something that needs to be remain exclusively within the policing domain?
Just so I understand the question, so you're talking about whether we could rely on some partners or partner agencies to assist with that?
I'm just wondering what is it specifically that's done with regard to incident follow-up, and whether or not, given the new provisions of the Police Services Act, others could be enlisted to assist with that without tying up all the police resources we're currently managing there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't, looking at the list of items that are captured within that section, I don't know that the new Safer Ontario Act would provide any relief in that respect. Most of those are investigations that are carried out by our detective offices and by our specialized investigative units, where there really is no option to hand it off to any other unit. So it's they've got the ball and they've got to run with it at that point. And that major investigation that I talked about with regards to L8 was certainly one of the drivers there as well.
Yeah, I was just wondering from the standpoint if it's somewhat mundane and routine, if the others with less policing training could be assistive with regard to record checks or something like that to sort of offload some of the work from our personnel. But I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Any other items? I've got one on item number 44. This one deals with the police records and et cetera. And I guess my main comment here, a number of us, probably a year ago now, had a tour of the building in Welland, and there was a fair bit of property stored in Welland. And I know when we built the new headquarters here, we have a very sophisticated storage facility here now, and we wanted to centralize. Are we into a situation where we're getting close to running out of space? And are we online with the items that should be destroyed because we've kept them for I think it's 2 years? Are we getting close to the?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn over to Director DiDonato DeCellis for that response.
So we're methodically working through the files right now. We have enough space within our storage area. We're methodically working through them to eliminate the ones that can be destroyed. We have a record system in place where it's automatic. The problem was that people were putting into it stuff that probably didn't need to be put into it. So now as files are being entered into the records management system, they're being gone through methodically to make sure people understand exactly what needs to be saved and what needs to be destroyed immediately.
Okay, thank you. And another item I had here was dealing with item number 45. It's the Municipal Freedom of Information Report. On page 2, under the 2016 numbers, if I look at number of appeals being 4, number of appeals where service decision was upheld is 2, and are we missing 2 numbers there? Or the math doesn't come out. If you look at the next column over, which was 6, 2, and 4, I mean, that does work out. But 2 and 0, 2 plus 0 is still 2, not 4. Or am I missing something on that page number 2, on the 2016 column?
Unfortunately, Gary Holden is not available today, so I'll look into that, and we can get back to you with an email if that.
Yeah, that's fine. It's a minor
Right.
item. I'm just curious as to keeping the numbers straight there, especially in the areas of appeals.
Right. Thank you. We'll do that.
Member Barrick?
Thanks. Just on that item, and we'll get confirmation, but I believe it's number of appeals that where the service decision was upheld, 2, and the other 2, I assume or infer that they were in the positive for the appellant, although it's not expressly put in there, but that may be the response.
So not seeing any other questions. Everybody in favor of the group that's for consent agenda? Okay, thank you. So that matter is dealt with. So we're up to number 48. It's the business plan process. Can I have a mover or seconder to put that on the floor, please? Moved by Member Stewart, seconded by Member Bonham. Any discussions on number 48? Member Barrick.
Thank you. I guess my only question is the timeline, and I see the current timeline that's here shows draft and final approvals for November 2018 of this year, distribution of the plan in December and January, Plan 2 Regional Council in January 2019. So the dynamic here is that there is an election in October, and I believe, and I can get confirmation, that a new council starts in December. They'll appoint other board members here, and I suspect will come forward in possibly January 2019. So my question is, maybe for conversation, is do we want to have a final approved business plan on the last day of our board term, and so a new board coming in, it's cemented. So, or can we leave the door open so that we do all the heavy lifting, but not, and leave it in draft form, so the new board comes in and they have an opportunity to tweak it or have a discussion about it, and maybe it gets approved in February. And I know we have provincial legislation to follow with respect to 3-year timelines and things like that. So I don't know if it's an appropriate question to Dr. Divers or Chief, someone on your team, or the chair of the strat plan committee. But that's the only flag that I thought may be worth considering, is we don't cement it, right at one of our last meetings of the board term. Thanks.
Member Stewart is the chair of that committee, so I'll ask him to comment on that first.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, and then certainly the service can add some more in here. I think one of the issues is the business plan cycle, which will soon become strategic plan cycle when the new act is proclaimed. is a 3-year plan, so it means every once in a while it's going to synchronize with a municipal election cycle. In the new Police Act, it's going to move to 4 years. I think the second part of your question is that, number one, at that point in time, some of the board members will likely change, not necessarily all of the board members. And I'm not sure whether new board members who would arrive, because I still remember going over with Tara this morning when I first arrived on the board, to think that in 1 month you're going to be in any kind of a position to make serious comment on a business plan, because you're just learning how the whole thing operates, and you may have to rely on those that have been here before. So, you know, I guess we can be, quote, late. We were late the last time in the business plan, but it becomes a little more difficult because then you shorten the timeline to achieve your goals in the business plan if it waits too long. If we're just going to push it to February, theoretically it might end up there anyway if we can't achieve everything in there. But I think it's most difficult for somebody who's been a board member for a few weeks to have real serious, you know, knowledge to be able to look forward, and you might have to rely on the other board members. So I throw that out to say this is a tentative timeline that we've come up with to meet the goal of saying that this business plan starts in 2019, and to have the plan there so that the service can then begin to act on that plan as we go forward. So I throw that out and perhaps look for comment from the chief and/or anybody he delegates to throw that into the mix for the discussion.
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our preference would be to follow the recommended timelines, but you know, ultimately we're in the hands of the board. And again, recognizing that just because of the 3-year cycle, this year happens to coincide with an election, it does complicate things to a certain degree. So again, our preference would be to follow the timelines, and if that could be achieved, the template would be in place for when the business cycle actually starts, as opposed to it being delayed, whether it and I think your point is well taken, Member Stewart, in that it may take some board members a period of time. I think our business plan for the last cycle was approved in May of whatever year that was, 2016, I guess it would have been. So again, we're in your hands with regards to timelines.
Member Barrick?
Okay, thanks for that. So it's an information report to receive. I'd like preferably just keep the door open. We'll see how it goes moving forward. Again, my overarching concern is so up to 4 members of the board may change, and that's a majority of the board. And I know if I put myself in the shoes of the position of possibly other appointees in January, coming in knowing that a strategic plan or business plan, 3-year plan was approved just the previous meeting, you know, my preference is leave a draft, let them have a kick at the can. I don't want to presuppose anything, who it will possibly be. Maybe we possibly returning people, maybe not. So it's too early to determine the individuals that'll be here and what experience and knowledge that they will have. But I'm satisfied with the response. I understand the services point of view. We've confirmed previously it is the board's plan. We did it in May last time. If we do it in February to reflect the democratic process and this timing, I'm happy with that. So I'm happy to receive information. It's going to be an ongoing discussion anyway. I just wanted to flag it at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, show of hands for receive. So that item is now passed. Item number 49 is a report from the service dealing with the HRIS scheduling system. There's 2 recommendations there, items 1 and 2. Can I have a mover and seconder for the matter? Moved by Member Bonham, seconded by Member Caslin. Chief, turning it over to you for discussion.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So with regards to the HRIS software, this has been discussed at the board several times. We believe that it would be very, very beneficial for us to have this software so that we can better integrate with our scheduling, which right now is unfortunately, a bit of a hodgepodge of Excel spreadsheets and whatnot, and we really feel that by going with an HRIS software solution that will be able to integrate all those systems, and right now we're using the Kronos time management software. We were originally looking for a software solution that would integrate with that software solution. Unfortunately, we've learned now that the region may not, that Kronos may not be our go-forward time management software. So what we're now proposing or recommending is that we go with a request for information to find out a specific software solution that will integrate with whatever time management software solution that the region ends up selecting. Originally, we were of the belief that it was going to be Kronos and that it would be a sole sourced product that would integrate with Kronos. But because now there's a little uncertainty as to where the region may be going with that software, we feel that this is the best option to go forward.
Okay, thank you. Member Caslow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a great example of working together with all of our regional partners to make sure that we use our dollars wisely and take full advantage of any efficiencies that we can. Thank you.
Yeah, I would concur with that, and knowing our attendance management system with the different shifts can be fairly complex. And I suspect within the region, with some of their different agencies, they would probably have some complex scheduling issues. So working together, so we would be basically approving items 1 and 2 on that. Member Bonham.
Yes, I guess people should not lose track of the fact that we are not efficiently and effectively utilizing our human capital. There's a very large cost to that in terms of overtime and inefficiencies. This was identified as a priority capital budget item moving forward because of the recognition of that. And I'm noting that in December of 2017, delegates from the service met with the region, and there was no plans with regard to replacing the current human resources management system. Not 1 month goes by, then all of a sudden there's a flurry of activity and the region's changed its mind. My concern is we're continuing to set this back and back and back, and we're once again navel-gazing with regard to moving ahead. So I'm wondering, from the chief's perspective, I appreciate that you're not in the driver's seat, but we sort of adopted at the January meeting that we're going to be aggressive. At that time, there was also the issue of how long do we consult. There was a feeling amongst senior staff that we should get moving, that we should get on with the Kronos business and move this thing forward because of the inefficiencies and huge waste of human capital. So I'm just concerned that this sets us back once again. Is there a timeline within which we're going to be dialoguing with the region, a timeline within which we're going to crystallize the plan, and a timeline within which we're going to get on to effectively managing our human resources? And if not, maybe this board should be setting one. We just can't afford this thing to carry on. It's disappointing that in 2018, we're in the business of still not understanding where our human capital is on a shift-to-shift, week-to-week, or month-to-month basis. And that needs to get stopped fairly shortly. So I'd like to understand how long we're going to be going on with consultations. To me, it's a step back, 2 or 3 steps back. A little bit frustrating in December, the region saying we don't have any plans to change it. And in January, in less than 30 days, presumably, all of a sudden we are changing it. So how soon are we going to get off the snide here, so to speak, and get moving forward to a solution that may be board only, but there's a tremendous need to more effectively manage our human capital. Thank you.
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We have those discussions that you talk about with the region are ongoing, and they are certainly respectful of our needs, and we've certainly highlighted those with regards to having a better handle on our human capital. There are some other things that we are doing on on the side, we've integrated a new daily duty log report that will be automated and capturing information through our time management systems that we have currently in place. So we'll have a better understanding going forward in the interim, at least while we're waiting for that HRIS software solution. And as I said, we, at the time in December, when that report came forward, we had no inclination that they were considering another software other than Kronos. And our report recommendations that came forward at that time were geared towards sole sourcing and going towards that software. We are a partner with the region and again, respectful of their wishes to find efficiencies, and we'll continue to work with the region to put forward our needs. And again, they seem to be very respectful of that as well, and we'll work together with them.
Well, thank you for that, and I understand we have other avenues and other initiatives, but to me, they're sort of Band-Aid as opposed to the real issue of getting on. And I'm just wondering, Board Chair, if we can't be passing some kind of a memo or a document back to the region requesting a timeline within which this stuff is going to be reviewed and drawn to a close so that we can get on with business. There's a tremendous cost that has been paid and is being paid today because we're not effectively managing our human resource capital. And I'd suggest we need a prompter to the region to start moving on this very, very quickly. As I said, within 30 days, the region reversed its position. December, there's no plans. January, there's great plans. So, and that just puts us back and back and back. So I'd suggest we get on with some kind of a document from the board to the region asking for a definitive date within which these decisions are going to be made so that we can collectively move on to a better future in terms of human resource capital management. Thank you.
Back to the chief and then Member Stewart.
Sorry, was that Member Stewart first, or did you want me
No,
to
I'll
go?
let you go first and then
Okay.
Member Stewart.
So we have, through Mr. Chair, we have met with the CAO, Carmen D'Angela. We've met with Human Resource Director, as well as a person who oversees procurement. And there have been quite a few discussions with regards to this and expressing our needs and our desire to want to have a more effective scheduling system for our resources that are on multiple schedules, multiple shift, whether it's 12-hour, 10-hour, 8-hour. So they understand our needs. There's a meeting scheduled for March 26th, and again, the dialogue continues. One of the recommendations, recommendation number 2, is to formally request that we have representation on the committee that's involved in selecting the software, and I think that would prove to be a very effective tool as well. I mean, with right now we have about 1/3 of the overall staff that's employed by the region. If you look at our staff combined with theirs, so there's definitely a high volume of people that, and as a result, we should be part of those discussions that are going on in the selection process.
Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. And just to clarify, I mean, if we adopt this recommendation, what would be your sense of when the request for information would go out? Because I sort of have the same sense of moving forward, and I guess we don't know where we're moving forward until we get the information that we're requesting. And I'm assuming that would come back to the board once you would gather the information as to what sort of direction we would be approving at that point in time. So do you give me an idea of the timeline and if I'm correct in my assumptions there?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I can confirm that we have been crystal clear with the region in terms of our need to have a platform in place that will meet our scheduling needs for next year. And I would like to echo the Chief's comments that the CAO, the manager of HR, and I think he's the manager of procurement, We've met with them, and they're fully alive and respectful of our concerns. We have a meeting next week, and I would anticipate that within a month, the RFI would go out, and our goal is no different than it was a month ago, and that is to have a scheduling software system in place for next year. I think that this approach allows us to meet our short-term needs, if I can call next year our short-term needs, while also not handcuffing us for, 3, 4, 5 years down the road where the region might have a different system and we are faced with having to revisit what we have and start over again, and so that we can integrate as one enterprise.
And through you, Chair, so I like what I'm hearing, because I think we got to think both short and long-term on this, but without having the information that you would be requesting, we're going in circles right now, I think, until we can have that come forward. So I'm fully in support of getting it moving to what Member Bonham has said, but let's get the information forthwith, and so then the next decisions can be made as to where we're going and whether or not we're compatible with where the region's going on it. Thank you.
Member Bonham again?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at, with regard to Member Stewart's comments just a moment ago, I'm looking at a regional report, Human Resources Employee Information System, and very concerning is on page 3, under analysis, bullet point 2 is consideration of moving to a new EIS platform, given the age of the current system, is expected to take at least 3 years. That's very concerning to me. And I'm suggesting that we may want to take a now and a longer-term view with regard to, let's get something going now, and if we have to change it into the future, so be it. But this is 3 years and probably optimistic, given the way things move and the politics involved and elections and all that kind of good stuff. So 3 years is a long time to continue to tread water here and to be navel-gazing about the future. I think we want to maybe proceed as we originally decided and get something going, and if we have to adapt 4, 5, 6 years from now, then maybe that's the best approach we should be taking, but it's essential we get something moving fairly short, and this doesn't give me any warmth that there's going to be any movement in any kind of short term. Thank you.
Well, I'm concerned with the extension of time, having worked on a lot of projects, but the one thing I would ask, we've got 2 items here that should be approved today, but I would also add to that the service needs to provide back through the Technology Committee a follow-up, let's say, in 2 months. So by then, we've already done these to get a sense of where this thing is going. And if it looks as though this project is going to be, for some reason, delayed or extendedly delayed, then I think we as a service need to put together something in place to move that schedule forward a lot faster, because we do have we have 1,200 staff here. And scheduling and human capital and human resources and the whole management of that has always been a major issue and something that needs to be forefront. So I would suggest that at the end of 2 months, through our Technology Committee, a status report of where this is going and where this is landing, to keep us apprised, rather than hearing about it at the end of a year, oh, well, we didn't make it and it's another year, et cetera. So we need to know more rapidly. Unless there's any other questions or comments, then I would ask for a show of hands to approve the 2 items that are on this. So that matter is carried. Item number 50 is user fees. Can I have a mover and seconder to put this on the floor? Moved by Member Caslin, seconded by Member Bonham. Any discussions on this item by board members? Member Caslin, and then Member Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to understand, in the conclusion statement on the second page, it talks about the report will be submitted to the board for consideration, deemed appropriate. What does the bylaw contain in terms of authorized waiving of fees? What would that contain?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding, there is no provision within the bylaw right now for the waiving of fees.
Am I clear to to assume that this is a request to include something, or is this a request to include something at the discretion of the chief?
So through you, Mr. Chair, just for some context, this was a request that came through to me from Chair D'Angela requesting that we waive the fees for this specific incident or instance. At present, we do not have the provision to do so, and so that's why the report has come here. And recognizing as well that that there are a number of volunteer agencies in the community, so as well recognizing that by opening it up to one particular incident or instance, it may cause the potential floodgates to open up.
I guess that's my point. We're essentially asking for a broad change to a bylaw as opposed to a specific event. And it kind of goes back and forth in this report, whether it's really an ask for one event or it's an ask for a broader change. So I'm a little bit confused as to what we're really asking for here.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I guess it's a bit of both really, because the way the bylaw is right now, it precludes us from doing so. So in order to allow for this one-off request, there would have to be a change to the bylaw to allow it. But again, I just want to caution the board that if in doing so, then it potentially opens the floodgates.
And I don't disagree, and I'm just wondering if at a regional council level, we often have the opportunity to split a motion so that we can approve a specific instance, but then going forward, perhaps give the service authorization to come forward with a proposal instead of simply approving a proposal before we actually approve a specific instance.
Well, we probably could have that discussion, but I want to hear the comments from the other members, then we can have that one. Member Stewart?
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just a few quick questions. If I recall correctly, when these fees are set, for example, for criminal background check for employees, it was set at $50. It was set basically to be somewhat of a cost recovery basis for the cost of our time and whatever it is in processing that. Am I correct on that? Or am I remembering incorrectly? Is it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, somewhat cost
Somewhat.
recovery, yeah.
Okay, and then in our bylaw, when someone is volunteering as opposed to going to employment, we reduce that cost by 60%, down to $20.
That's
So
correct.
we obviously can't be, quote, making money at $20. We're probably losing some, okay? Now, when I look at that, I share the view you expressed that we could be opening the floodgates. When I look at the event stated in here, I did go online to see, okay, when this basketball tournament comes to St. Catharines, the tournament passes cost $125 minimum, all the way up to $299 for a tournament pass. So they're generating a lot of revenue at this event. So to turn around and waive fees for the volunteers needed to put on the event, what happens when Kiwanis hockey leagues or Jordan hockey leagues come forward and say, you know, we have all these coaches and we don't charge any admission to our events, and we raise money through bingos and spaghetti dinners and everything to pay for all of our costs. Should we not get it free as well? And ironically, my own head says I have more sympathy for those events than the ones that are going to be charging, you know, $125 to $300 for people to go see them. So I think we build in something to assist any groups with volunteers, and that is we charge $20. If we feel that we'd like to do more and make it $10, that's a discussion item. But then I think we make it for everybody. And I think the third comment I'm going to make on this is that I have said a long time that I think provincially we need to do something to improve this whole criminal background checks. I've had a situation with a friend of mine whose daughter was coaching, then went to Brock Teachers College, and in a span of 12 months had to get 5 criminal record checks. And we have people right now who coach teams, who volunteer, and they're getting record checks every time they coach. Even if they coach hockey in the winter and baseball in the summer, that's 2 record checks. And we're continually asking people to prove they're not a criminal again and again in this province. And I have advocated to Mr. Holden that we could advocate provincially to give somebody a card of some sort where they're saying, I've been record checked, like a driver's license. If something happens, we can pull that on them. You know, like we pull a driver's license if something happens, rather than have the same people again and again have to go through the process. And it costs us money. It's not the police's fault. It costs us money to process it. I get that. But it's just we've created an untenable situation, I think, for these regular volunteers. And when I look at the people who will volunteer at this FIBA tournament, I will bet you there's going to be a lot of local coaches and basketball coaches and teachers and whatever it is, and they're all criminal checked already, and they have to do it again. Not only that, some of the people might be out there directing people to park. Do they need a police record check to do that? They're not working with the kids. You see, to me, it opens a whole real can of worms on this. And I would just as soon state that I'm sorry. This is what we have here, what we have to do. We're trying to recover our costs, and we've given volunteers a real break, 60% off the regular price. I'm not sure we can do much more than that, unless we, as a bylaw, wish to turn around and say, let's make it 10, let's make it 0. Then it's the same ground floor for everybody who's volunteering, not just for one particular event. I guess I've spouted off enough. Thank you.
Just Member Bonham?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I can only echo my support for the views expressed by Member Stewart that this is going to open up the floodgates, and I don't think it's something we want to get into on a piecemeal basis. We've got a bylaw that, as the member indicates, reduces the costs for volunteers, but doesn't eliminate it, and I think that's very appropriate. If we start doing this one-off stuff, we're going to be inundated with requests to bypass all the fees, and I don't think that's appropriate either. I mean, we've got to be fair to the taxpayers. It is costing some money to do this, and with all due respect to volunteers, a minor cost is something that I think they could well assume and continue to assume moving forward. So I'm not supportive of the recommendation that we get into moving forward on some kind of a reconsideration of the bylaw, which would consider waiving fees under specific circumstances, because once we establish the circumstances, there's going to be people out there dreaming up ways for their organization to meet the criteria for the total waiving of fees, and that's not going to be productive in my opinion. Thank you.
The Pan Am Games that were held, all the background checks were done by the RCMP, correct? We didn't have any involvement through us? That was volunteers?
I'd have to check on that. You're talking about the security personnel?
No, they must have had people working at the venue that were volunteers for the Pan Am Games. I mean, we had members there as our security contingent, as OPP, RCMP, et cetera. But they had to have volunteers, just as this organization wants volunteers for stuff. And I don't remember, well, there certainly was no request to reduce the fees for that, but I'm not sure whether those volunteers were actually checked by us or whether it was checked by the province.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't think of an instance where we've waived fees in the past. So, and that was the reason why we brought it to the board, because it is it's a very noble gesture to do so, but it does potentially open the floodgates.
Okay. So this before us, we have the ability to approve it by reducing the fees, or we can reject it and it stays the status quo of being $20. Member Barrick.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I couldn't agree more with members Stewart and Bonham. You know, we have an average this term of 2.36%. budget increases, and that was a lot of work. And I won't get into details. I think people know how much work it's been to help this organization become more financially sustainable. And we don't do all that work to start waiving fees. I don't want the discretion. I don't want the discretion. We, on waiving fees for records checks, we had a similar scenario at the Niagara region, albeit larger dollars, with respect to development charge waivers for nonprofits. And we had one great cause after the other come forward. Sometimes the region said yes, waive development charge fees, and sometimes they said no. They were political decisions. It was terrible. We said enough, put the parameters in the bylaw, and be done with it. We don't want these, we're not here to make those types of decisions. This is the same scenario, again, albeit on a smaller scale. This one's for $4,000. But, you know, we're spending time on it. I envision future requests for great causes. They're all great causes. We have administrative responsibilities and functions to do. And otherwise, we'll be spending time at considering waiving $200, $500. You know, it's, I don't want these coming to the board. So I'm going to vote no to this. Thanks for hearing my frustration with Member Stewart. Thank you.
I concur with all those comments as well. So let's do this on this one. Who is in favor of reducing the fees? Show of hands. Sorry, eliminating the $20 fee for this organization. So how do you want me? Which one is it?
So I think what I'm hearing is that maybe they might want to change the motion so that
That's what's confusing.
the board will deny the request
okay.
and continue to
Okay.
support the current
It's easier to word, let me reword this here. A motion then would be that the board will deny the request, so that the fees will stay exactly as they are. So show of hands to deny the request. No, that's the other one. Okay. Member Caslin.
Mr. Chair, I'm just not sure if you need to clean up that last piece of business. Do you need a motion to not revise the bylaw or not participate in a new passage in the bylaw?
The easier term would best just say is the board and the service will follow the bylaw as it stands now.
Yep. Okay.
Member Bonham.
Just point of clarification, the recommendation is the board considers updating the above stated bylaw. The board is not prepared to consider updating the bylaw. End of.
So the board then is voting to say we're not going to change the bylaw, we're not going to change the fees, all in favor of that. Okay, so that matter is dealt with, nothing changed. Chief.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the board's direction, and we'll not have any further requests coming forward to the board with regards to the waiver of fees.
Thank you. Item number 51, this is the correspondence from our executive director in regards to 2018 membership renewal in the Ontario Association of Police Services Board. The amount is $5,446.49. A mover to put that on the floor. Member Stewart, seconded by Member Bonham. Any discussion on that item? Not seeing any? Show of hands, who's in favor? So that item is dealt with. Item number 52 is the Ride to Remember. It's an annual event, or has become an annual event. A mover to put this on the floor. Member Bonham, seconded by Member Stewart. Any discussion on this item? Chief, anything?
Just through you, Mr. Chair, it's, as you know, this was an event that was actually initiated by members of the Niagara Regional Police Service some years ago, and so it's we're very, very supportive of this initiative, and it just continues to grow and grow, and now we're upwards of 200 cyclists, so it's a great event, and we're very supportive of it.
Yes, thank you. Member Caslin.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, do we have riders participating in this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do. Sean Briggs, Detective Sergeant Sean Briggs, who's come to the board before and presented, has been, if he hasn't ridden in the last 10 years, it's upwards of 10 years that he's done the ride, and there's a number of, I think thereabouts 5 riders altogether from the Niagara Regional Police.
Okay. And the route itself, does it come anywhere near Niagara?
So the route specifically starts, our riders, and typically they're joined by a number of other riders at the Welland District. They go from the Welland Division up to the Ontario Police College, and the official launch of the ride is from the Police College. But again, they do start from Welland, and then they go from the Police College through to Toronto, and then from Toronto to Cobourg, Kingston, and then on its way up to Ottawa.
Can I ask, Mr. Chair, that the staff look into a possibility of members of the service that would not be able to make the complete ride be made aware of it, and if there's any opportunity for us to ride along with the actual riders that are going to do the complete ride, that perhaps we are able to ride at least the Niagara part?
You're talking about board members?
Anybody on staff that perhaps we want to open that up to, as well as board members. I know personally I'm a cyclist and former chair of the cycling committee of Niagara, and I'd love to participate. I participate in the waterfront trail ride that starts in Niagara Lake and carries on to Montreal through the Niagara part. So if there's an opportunity for those who wish to, could I ask staff to explore that?
Absolutely, that's not a problem. We've already put it out to all of our members internally to see if there's interest in their participation, but we can certainly extend that to yourself.
And lastly, can Ken use his motorcycle?
I have a bicycle as well.
Okay.
And I remember
My
when this
mistake.
started off, I think we had 90 members, I think the first year in total. And I'm assuming once you get to the Toronto area, you basically follow Highway 2 all the way out to Kingston. So it's a good, I've seen it go by, I've seen it start, I've been at the start several years ago now. And I too might take up the challenge of Member Caslin, and I think Member Stewart still rides, and doing some segment of it. I did participate in the torch run many years ago. Anyway, any additional comments? Show of hands in favor of this motion. I think it's worthwhile. Thank you. Number 53 is another request. It's a donation for $500 to the Niagara Falls Community Outreach Soup Kitchen. A mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Moved by Member Caslin, seconded by Member Stewart. Any discussion on the item? Member Bonham.
I'm questioning whether or not this is a one-off, first-time event, or is this a repeat request from the same organization that is once again, given the calendar turn-up coming forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is the first time the board has received such a request from the Niagara Falls Community Outreach Soup Kitchen.
Any additional comments? Show of hands to approve this item. Thank you. We have another new item, number 54. This deals with the cross-border tug-of-war, which I think we recently were invited to. And I have participated in that. I think I missed last year, but I think I've been there to all the others. I believe Member Stewart has been to all. No, you missed one. I missed last year. Okay. So a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Moved by Member Barrick, seconded by Member Caslin. Any discussion, Chief, on this?
No, it's a great event for those that have participated in it. To be marched onto the bridge with our pipe band is really an impressive day, and we welcome your attendance. And
New York's, or the American side, won the last time I wasn't there. Was that correct?
Let's not go back too far in history. We won last year.
Well, we did.
Yes, we did.
It was a photo finish then.
Yeah.
Show of hands in favor of this. Thank you. Is there any other new business to come before the board? Any members, service, anything? So then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We'll take a break for about 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll move into confidential.